And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips, the creator and producer and host of the show. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_truth. Like its Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast and listen in audio form on Spreaker. The Michigan Wolverines got their monkey off their back by beating the Ohio State Buckeyes 45-23 at the Horseshoe Ohio Stadium in Columbus, and for the first time since 2000. The first half overall was a tight toe-to-toe seesaw fight, not only on the scoreboard, but in total yards as well. Like most of each team's drive in the first half went a long way for touchdowns and field goals. The first half overall was a fight. The Buckeyes led 20-17 at the break. J.J. McCarthy for Michigan would throw two bombs to wide receiver Cornelius Johnson to keep his team in the game. But in the second half, the Wolverines outscored the Buckeyes 28-3. That 45-yard touchdown pass from J.J. McCarthy to Colston Loveland, I think he's a freshman, correct me if I'm wrong, got it all started while their defense revved itself up two notches. McCarthy's three-yard touchdown keeper gave his team a bit more breathing room. The Buckeyes were forced to punt at least a couple times before Michigan kicker Jake Moody would attempt a tall order of a 57-yard field goal but miss it. The wind might have pushed the ball away when it was initially on its way and on course, which kept the Buckeyes in the game. Ohio State was then threatening to score a touchdown, but Mike Sainristil for Michigan made a much-needed pass breakup in the end zone, forcing a field goal to inch the Scarlet and Silver back to within 8 at 31-23. But then Donovan Edwards' two long touchdown runs with the Taylor Upshaw pick in between would absolutely bury the game. That second pick that C.J. Stroud for Ohio State threw was just extra icing on the cake and sugar to add to it too. The Wolverines did it all in large part with their Heisman candidate running back Blake Corum, who was limited to 2 short carries for 6 total rushing yards due to a bad knee. They had all sorts of other weapons on offense. They didn't use his injury as an excuse. They didn't rely on him to carry them on his back. They used other weapons on offense. Everyone stepped up. They put all those weapons like Cornelius Johnson, Donovan Edwards, and Colston Loveland, everyone else, including the offensive line, to good use when they needed to. And head coach Jim Harbaugh had to come up with a game plan, like I said Friday night here on YouTube. And he did so. And he stuck with it for a full 60 minutes. And it paid dividends. It worked. Michigan earned the victory. That's how wins are earned against an arch rival. End of story. Period. Now, I've read recently a lot of pushy Michigan Homer fans and media tweeting on Twitter and arguing that Michigan should be number 1 overall over Georgia in all the polls. Granted, the Wolverines earned their win in Columbus for the first time since 2000. But you people have to realize one thing. They still have work to do. Because even if Georgia dominated all their games against their opponents and made them all look like child's play, they are still the defending national football champions, and they still have more college football playoff competition experience than Michigan has. And the meeting those two teams had against one another in that playoff tournament, that college football playoff semifinal, as we recall earlier this calendar year, proved it by a landslide. And that's exactly exactly the main thing that I've learned when Georgia was rolling over Michigan. And Michigan has to go through and beat the defending champion Georgia Bulldogs and win the college football playoff national championship to prove that they are number one and better than Georgia. That's what they need to do to prove it. And they clearly have a shot at doing so based on the way they have improvised their play on both sides of the line of scrimmage from last season. For now, all they have to do is take care of business against the Purdue Boilermakers in Indianapolis for the Big Ten Championship, which they can, even though it may look like a trap game. Purdue is coming in at 8-4, and Michigan can stay in the college football playoff, win or lose. But the main thing is you have to earn that number one spot if you're Michigan. Beat Georgia and win the national title. Right now you have earned number two. You're working your way up slowly but surely. And if or when Michigan and Georgia meet again in the college football playoff, possibly win, and that's a possibility too. It'll be a fight and thus a toss-up as well. That is another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube Live. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and listen in audio form on Spreaker. Business shout-outs go to Cali Tickets. Call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative embroidery of Cadillac, designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on these bad boys right here. The long sleeve shirt and my t-shirt. And United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, with Jim Lyons in it. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is a presentation and production of Phillips Media. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Hit him with a hind. Power to the people. Case closed.